Hello chess fans, this is Rick from Chess to Impress with coverage of Game 10 of the 2021 World Championship match between the champion Magnus Carlsen from Norway and his challenger Ian Nepomniachtchi from Russia. We had a bloodbath in the last 4 games with 3 decisive games. Unfortunately for the challenger, they all went to Magnus Carlsen. And while we're looking at the handshake before the start of Game 10, we see the confirmation in the match table that Nepomniachtchi is in big trouble. There are only 5 games left in this match and Nepomniachtchi will need to win 3 of them. And to make matters worse, Nepomniachtchi will be black in 3 of those last 5 games. Let's see what happened in Game 10. Would Nepomniachtchi go all out or would he try to stop the bleeding? It's Carlsen white, Nepomniachtchi black, and the date is the 8th of December 2021 and Carlsen opened with the e-pawn. e5, so we did not get a Sicilian, which would come on the board after c7, c5. That is a very sharp opening. e5 is more solid. Knight f3 and knight f6, and that is one of the most solid of all the e4, e5 openings. Nepomniachtchi is deciding not to go crazy in Game 10. Carlsen took on e5, d6, and now the main move is to go back to f3 with the knight, but Carlsen went to d3. This variation was also seen in Game 6 of the 2018 World Championship match between Carlsen and Caruana. It's quite a modest move, knight d3. Black takes the pawn back, queen e2 and queen e7, and knight f4. Here you can play knight c6, and it was the previous challenger for the world title, Fabiano Caruana, who showed a very nice variation here. White can play knight d5, attacking black's queen. Black then counterattacks white's queen, and you can play queen c4, and Caruana said this wins apart from the fact that it loses. It loses only in one way, and that is with knight c3 check. It is the black queen who gives check to the king. It's a discovered check. And if you take the queen, then knight takes c2 is checkmate and black wins. Nice variation. After knight f4, Nepomniachtchi decided against knight c6, which is a fine move. He played knight f6. d4 in the center and knight c6 was played now, attacking that pawn on d4. Carlsen protected it with c3 and d5, also getting a foothold in the center. Both players would like their opponent to swap the queens, as that would develop the bishop for free, so neither player is taking the queen. Knight d2 from Carlsen developing. Knight d8, that knight is going to e6, and also black's c-pawn can now play. Knight f3, and Nepomniachtchi blinks first and takes the queen. Bishop takes, developing that bishop for free, and you can play knight e6 here, and then there is knight takes, and bishop f4, and that is what black wants to avoid, because this bishop is quite strong there, and white has a slight advantage. And that's why after bishop takes e2, Nepomniachtchi plays bishop d6 first, before he brings the knight to e6. Quite subtle. Both players castled, and bishop d3. Rook e8 and rook e1 fighting for control of the open e-file, the only open file on the board. The pawn structure is very symmetrical. The rooks were swapped, and now that knight comes to e6 as planned. It was swapped. Bishop recaptures, and you can play f3 here to blunt the knight on f6 somewhat, but Carlsen plays g3 first. His plan is f3, knight g2, g4, knight f4 and king f2 to slowly but surely gain some space on the king side. An expansion strategy. Nepomniachtchi played g6, and there goes that knight to g2 as planned. Rook centralized. f3 and knight h5. Black is of course not sitting quietly while white carries out his plan. He is going to do something similar as white to improve his position. He's going to play f6 and g5, knight back to g7 and king f7. King f2, c6, g4, and the knight goes back to g7. This position is slightly better for white because of his extra space by his expansion on the king side. Bishop f4, that bishop was swapped, the knight is now on a nice square, but g5 kicks that knight. Black has really fully equalized here. Knight drop back to e2 and f5. Threatening to take on g4, winning a pawn and winning the f5 square. So Carlsen plays h3, protecting g4 again. King f7, rook h1, h6, and Carlsen pushes f4. A lot of tension there with those pawns. Amateur players like you and me don't like that tension, but super grandmasters don't mind. They just calculate what all the captures will bring. King f6 is possible, keeping the tension, supporting the pawns. That is an option, but in the game Nepomniachtchi decided to liquidate. He took on g4, and let's see what happened. H takes, a lot of material comes off. Carlsen wins the pawn back on h6, bishop f5, another trade, attacking the rook. Carlsen gave a check, knight drop back to shield the check. F takes g5, winning a pawn, but not for long. King g6 attacks both the rook and the pawn. The rook has to save himself. King takes pawn, restoring the material balance. A check, king drop back, another check, king drop back, knight f4, king d6, knight g6, and rook e6 was played on move 37 by Nepomniachtchi. Knight e5, very nice knight there on that central square. Nepomniachtchi is going to play his knight around. Rook f7, and this is the last bit of excitement in this game. If it was white to play again, the game would be over with rook d7, and that is checkmate. That was not going to happen after rook f7. Nepomniachtchi saw the checkmate threat, of course, and he gave a check. The rooks came off the board, and king e3 was the last move of the game. This was move 41, the time control was reached. The players are not allowed to offer a draw before move 40, but now they could look at each other, and in this totally equal position, the players shook hands and agreed to a very uneventful draw. Nepomniachtchi stopped the bleeding with a solid draw with the black pieces, and Carlsen will also be quite happy. He's half a point closer, a successful defense of his world title. Thursday the 9th of December will be a rest day, and game 11 will be played on Friday the 10th of December, and I will be here after the game to tell you what happened. I hope you liked this video and that you'll keep following the World Championship match with me. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up, please subscribe to the Chess to Impress channel, and please leave a comment. I will read them all and I will reply to them all. If you liked the video, it would be great if you could share it on social media by clicking the share button on YouTube. You can find me on Instagram, on Twitter and on Facebook. This is Rick for Chess to Impress. Thank you for watching.